How's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Lightfoot Effects. Today we're going to take a deep dive into the Strymon Iridium. I will show you how I like to set it up doing a dual rig, which means we will be running two Iridiums in stereo. And today I want to make it extra challenging by using the stock cabs. It seems the consensus on the internet and on forums is that anything is better than the stock cabs. I want to take this from an approach on how to save you the most money and how to get great tone with just the stock cabs, so you don't have to buy any extra IRs. Maybe you just got an Iridium and you're wanting to start out and you don't want to spend more money on IRs. You want to use what came in it. So this video is for you. If you want to use two of them in stereo also, you can still apply this video to if you just use one. But in this video, we're going to set up two of them. We're going to do an AC30 on one side, and then we're going to do a Fender on the other. So you can see on the pedal board here, I got two Iridiums. I got one set to the chime and one set to the round, which is the Fender. I'm going to leave both settings on the A cabs, which are kind of their neutral stock cab. I believe the Iridium, the A cab, is a blueback, a Vox open blueback, and then the Fender is just a normal deluxe reverb cab. So I'm not totally sure what mics. I think they're like SM57s. I could be wrong. I didn't totally look, but this is what comes stock. I'm just setting them to A, and we're going to try and get some great tones out of them. The guitar that we are playing today is the Gretsch Broadcaster with two TV Joan Classic pickups, TV Joan Classic in the bridge and a Classic in the neck. So to just jump right into it, I just have these in my pedal board. I put the Iridiums at the very end of my chain, so everything is going into the Iridiums. Then the Iridiums are going into the canvas, and then I have the canvas going into my Apollo, which is my interface. You can also, use like a Scarlett or whatever interface you have. Normally, I would take this to a venue and I would just plug the canvas into the front of house wherever I'm playing, and I'll be good to go. So that's kind of what I'm replicating here. One thing to know, first of all, is that when you run the Fender amp and the Vox amp with the Iridiums, they are out of phase. So you need to find a way to swap the phase, whether you have a pedal or you can have the person at the soundboard swap the phase, or you can do it with software. I am using a pedal. Under my pedal board, there's the Goodwood Output TX. I have that running before my Iridiums, right before them. So everything goes into those, and then that goes into the Iridiums, and so I can just swap the phase just to keep them sounding good. I'm not going to go into a phase a lot in this video. I might do another one on that at some point where we'll talk about phase and why that happens and how to fix it. So the way I have these set up is the very last pedal in my chain is my reverb, and it's a stereo pedal, so it's splitting into stereo, and then it's going into the Output TX that's under my pedal board, and then the Output TX is sending one mono in on each of the Iridiums. So each Iridium is actually set to mono, and then I'm going to the left out on each one into the canvas stereo. So it's just keeping the stereo flow intact. So I'm not actually running stereo into a single Iridium. I'm running each one mono, but both of them together, it acts as stereo. It's essentially the equivalent of me having two amps, one on each side, and one's like a Fender, one's a Vox. I think that's all the explaining we need. Let's go into how I set these up. First, we will start with the Vox. So I am actually going to turn the Fender all the way down. I'm not going to turn it off because otherwise sound will get through. I don't want any sound to come through, so I need it on with the level off. Otherwise my dry signal will come through still. I just want to hear the Vox in isolation. We'll see how it sounds. What I like to do when I set this up is I always keep my compressor on. If you have a compressor, I would turn it on beforehand. Then you can get it how you like it and then set your amp up to respond to your compressor. Otherwise, if you set the amp up first and then you turn your compressor on later, it's going to change the sound that you made. So you might want to set up your amp with the compressor on. If it's a pedal that you're always going to have on, let's say you have an overdrive that you always leave on, I would set up the amp with that overdrive always on also. This makes it so that you don't get surprised when you turn on that pedal, because you set the amp up already with the pedal on, so it sounds how you're expecting. What I want to do first is I noticed that on my Apollo, I have it set to linked. I want this one mono side to come out stereo. Right now it's only coming out of one speaker behind me. I want to get that pedal to come out of both, so I need to go to my interface and change that. You'll hear it in the recording. Right now you're hearing it in mono through one speaker, and now you'll hear it come through both. That's way better. So now I want it set like that to dial it in. But when I'm done and I combine them, I'm going to go and I'm going to switch it back because I want just on one on each side. So right now I just set the Vox to come through both speakers. Now what I like to do is whatever I'm monitoring with, I like to make sure that my volume's peaking at around -9. That's usually a good safe zone. So for me, that's gonna be, yeah, right around where the level knob is already at, right around here. Yeah, it's just going a little past -9, which is great. Another thing I like to do is I like to turn my preamp as low as it can go. The reason why is I don't want to rely on the preamp at wherever I'm playing. I want to put as much output as I can to the venue so that they don't have to rely on their preamp. It can be better coming from the source of the pedal. So the pedal sound comes out much more clear and better, and the preamp is only there to make up for any extra noise that they might need, any extra volume that I'm not giving them. But having it up here is pretty dang high, so that should be pretty good for wherever you're playing. Now another thing I like to do when I set these up is I like to have this really loud behind me as if I have a real amp in the room. This is so that I can really get the frequencies right. It makes it so the highs come out a lot louder so I can tame them, so when I play somewhere, I don't have too many highs. It just helps because, you know, if you're playing at a venue, they're probably going to crank you pretty loud. So you want to play loud when you're dialing in your tones. So let's hear it. This is the clean tone again. I just was doing some adjustments here. You won't hear it through the recording, but I can in my room. It's pretty loud. Not super loud, but it's almost as loud as if I had an amp at medium-ish volume. So the first thing with the Vox, the chime, is the middle acts as a cut knob, like on an AC30. So I like to start with the cut knob around the center. That's going to be used to cut your real highs. Let's start with the bass. I want to get a good balance of low and high. I want them to be equal across the board. I want the same lows as I have highs. That's what I'm shooting for. And I want to have some touch sensitivity, so if I dig in, if I strum hard, I get more gain. So here's my light playing. And hear how when I strum harder, it gets a little more distorted. Right away, I'm getting too many highs. I want to take that back. Now this IR is a blue speaker, which the Vox blue speakers are a lot brighter than, like, let's say a greenback. So the treble is going to need to come down quite a bit. And I can already tell the bass is going to need to come up a little bit, probably around there. See how that sounds. We're getting closer already. I'm going to strum and open. Sounds gross, but I need to turn the other hand. So let's hear how this sounds, and I'm going to change it live. Right there is where I'm hearing the lows come in. We're getting close. So what we can do now is we can bring a little more highs back in, just to see. Too much, in my opinion. Bring it back down. Probably a little too dull. Try it right around here. And I'm going to mess with the cut. I'm going to open it up a little to let more upper high frequencies come out. One thing I forgot to mention is this is a room knob. It's not meant to be reverb for a room, but an actual room. Like, it's supposed to emulate the sound of the amp in a room. So if you have headphones on and you're recording and you can hear your amp in another room, that's what this is trying to emulate. It's to give it more realness to you. So if I were to crank that, it should make it feel like it's an amp in a room that I'm recording. Or if the amp's backstage and you're playing at a gig, but the amp is mic'd, it's to give that feel. I like to leave those off because it just makes it clearer and less muddy. The amp in a room sound is not the sound I feel like you want to go for when you're trying to record and get a pristine quality recording. You just want the pure amp. You don't want like the echoey room in there. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little more drive, just to get a little more touch sensitivity out of it. Now what I'm going to do is see how that responds with overdrive. So we'll turn on the Benson preamp. And then we'll try the kilt, which I have set for higher gain. I think we're getting really close. I'm going to bring down the cut a little more to let more highs through. and maybe bring the treble up a little more and give it just a tad more drive. Then I'm gonna do the dynamic picking test. That's what I really like about the Iridiums, is they get really dynamic. A lot of modelers I feel like are kind of set in one area, but these get super, you can get that clean sound. But then if you play hard, it's pretty good. They did a pretty good job at that. Even with the boost pedal, it responds well. So that sounds pretty dang good. Hopefully it comes through the recording good, but in this room, that sounds great. I'd be happy with that. That's the stock IR. It sounds like you can tweak more. You can go into the Impulse Manager and you can cut highs and lows and things like that on the IR itself, but this is just a quick demo. This is just to help someone who's just bought this and they don't want to buy any IRs. This is just a great setting to go right out the door with, I think. Got a good neck pickup sound. That said, I'm going to make sure my level is still at -9. Yes, it's still there. So we're going to save it. If you hold down the favorite button till it blinks blue, that means it's ready to save what we just made, and we tap it again and it is locked in. So I can mess with these knobs whenever I want. If I hit the favorite, it comes right back. So what we'll do now is we'll turn that one down. Now we will turn up the Fender. Ooh, that does not sound good. Let's turn that down a little bit. It's really honky and mid sounding. Yeah, well, oh, the mids are cranked. That's why. We're in the -9 again. All right, this is the standard Fender Deluxe Reverb cab, which, to be honest, I don't totally love. Don't shoot me, but we can make it work. We'll do the same thing. I'm going to start with the low end. Seems to be same thing as the Vox, I think, right around there. For this guitar, some guitars you might have to go higher. If you have a guitar with a humbucker, you might have to go lower. These TV Jones are closer to single coils, so I usually have to crank the lows. Let's mess with the mids now. We'll mess with the treble. So I switched it up. After playing around with the Fender side, I decided to go to the C cab. I'm not totally sure which one is set to C, but this is if you just have a brand new Iridium, just switch it to C. This seems to be closest in the range that I like. And now we'll edit. I'm gonna make some more changes, so let's test the bass. And then we'll test out the highs. Now, one thing a lot of you might be tempted to do is take out the mids because it makes it sound really good in a room. But when you're playing live, you want some mids because it's what helps you as a guitarist stand out. So I'm going to turn the mids up, trying to get them in a good spot. I think we're getting close. I think that's right around good enough for me. Alright, I made a few more tweaks to it. This is ultimately where I set on with the knobs. Here's how it sounds. I could probably bring the drive down a tiny bit, actually. Here's how it sounds with the Benson. Here's with the Kilt. So now what we're going to do is we're going to save that one. I'm going to hold down favorite switch. And if I tap off the Fox, it should come back in. It should ignore where the level's at. It'll remember where I saved it. So now I'm going to go back to my Apollo and I'm going to put them back in stereo. So right now they're on top of each other. I want them spread. All right, I have just switched them now to be true stereo. So we'll hear each one panned. That came out very well. If you have a favorite selected, you can adjust each knob and it'll just change that one parameter for the favorite, and then you can resave it again. So I could literally just change the levels and then resave them. All right, they're both back at -9. So here's what we got. I got the compressor on and that's it. Compressor into the amps. Not too bad. That sounds great. So now we have both of our Iridiums set stereo, 1 amp on each side. And we'll just test it out with some effects. All in all, that sounds pretty good for just stock, no IRs. So yeah, that's how I run my Iridium stereo when I run them. Normally I do use IRs. I think having IRs adds, you can even get a better sound. I think for stock, this is really good. But whenever you're ready to go to the next level, IRs are great. I'm actually going to be doing a video on that soon. We'll do this kind of video again, but we're going to review some IRs and see how those sound. All right, everyone, that's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.